Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name's Christina, and today we're going to talk about kind of the state of the writing channel, I guess is the best word for it. Not quite sure where to begin. I took basically February off and had some writing success, but truthfully, I think I was a little burnt out, not just because of writing, but just life in general. Here in the DMV, we got a snowstorm right around the end of January, and basically it was like I went into hibernation mode. And then I went on vacation, and I'll talk a little bit about that because it was a great vacation. I kind of definitely feel like I have a little bit of a reset. And now it is March 1st, and I am ready to get back to it. I am ready to get back to writing. I'm ready to get back to submitting, and we'll talk a little bit about what that looks like and what's going to be in the future. I also had some thoughts on some recent publishing news that has happened. As many of you know, there's been an announcement that a lot of mass market paperback books are going the way of the dodo. We're not going to have mass market paperbacks in the next few years. And HarperCollins, I think it was Harlequin, shut down their historical romance section, or they're going to. So there's been quite a few things happening in publishing, and we'll just talk a little bit about that. So let's start off first with the state of my writing. This is kind of hard to say, but in January, I made the decision that I was going to unpublish all of my short stories that I had self-published on Amazon. I took them down for a few reasons. The first one being I wasn't making any sales. I used to have a small collection of 5 short stories that was up on Amazon, and I would sell 1 or 2 copies a year. But in 2024, I made the decision to unpublish that because, and this was before I ever started my YouTube channel, I unpublished it because, quite frankly, I wasn't happy with all of the stories in that collection. I published it back in 2015, and I was just a different writer, and I said, I don't think I want to do that. What I ended up doing was publishing individually a couple of the stories that were in that collection. I also self-published some stories that had been published on websites, and I have since gotten the rights back to them. And I was happy with that. I was happy with everything. They weren't perfect. There was one that didn't have any page numbers. I don't know why the page numbers did not show up, but all in all, I was very happy with those stories that I had published, but they just weren't selling. And I think part of it is a lot of people just don't want to buy a short story, And so I've been rethinking what to do because I don't want to keep doing the same thing that's not producing any results. And I'm still not quite sure what I'm going to do. My Substack does have some of those short stories on the paid tier, and I will continue to leave them there. But as for Amazon, I don't know. The other reason that I decided to unpublish from Amazon is that I'm kind of like a little bit anti-Amazon right now. I feel like these giant corporations are, destroying the environment. And, Amazon laid off a ton of people because of AI. And I just feel like, what? I don't really think they need my money. So that's why I'm leaving them up on Substack, but I am unpublishing them from Amazon. I'm not completely like anti-Amazon forever. I just feel like right now, that's not really where I want people to spend their dollars. If they're going to spend money on me, I would prefer that you subscribed to my Substack, or, hopefully in the next few years, I'll have an actual book out and you can support me by buying it from an indie bookstore or something like that. So, who knows? Maybe in the future I will decide that I want to republish on Amazon. I didn't throw away the covers or anything. But that's kind of where I'm at. The other thing, this is the third thing, and this is the last thing of why I unpublished on Amazon, was that I did not have any ISBN numbers. I was using the Amazon ASN number to publish. It was easy, it was free, and I was like, why not? But I realized that if I want to publish these short stories on other digital platforms like Smashwords or on Kobo or something, I was going to need an actual ISBN number. And if I did that, I would have to unpublish those anyways, make a second printing of it, and put in the new ISBN number. And so I said, okay, if I have to unpublish them anyways to get these ISBN numbers, because you have to buy them, and then you just, you have your 100 or I think you can buy them. You can either buy them in packs of 10 or I think you can get 100, but I really don't know, so don't quote me on that. But anyways, I was going to have to unpublish them anyways because they are associated with this ASN number. And so if I ever do decide I'm going back to Amazon, I have to get the ISBN numbers, and then I would make basically a second version of these stories, and I probably have to do a different color cover or some way to make them different, and I would have to re-upload that to Amazon. So I basically was like, I'm going to take a break and unpublish these and figure out what it is that I want to do. So that's where we're at right now with my Amazon publishing. My regular writing is currently right now in a kind of state of disarray. I have so many little nitpicky things to do with my writing, and I'm excited for that, but I'm also kind of not really wanting to do it. It's a little bit of a teeth pulling thing with me, because it's not that I dislike rewriting or revising. It's that I don't like revising one sentence, that kind of thing. And so I have a few short stories that I haven't looked at in a few years, and I need to look at them and figure out if I want to stand behind them and try to get them published, or if I want to just let them go. So that's kind of on the agenda. I also have this work that I'm working on, this book that I'm working on. I finished the second revision at the end of December 2025, and I have not looked at it since. And right now, I know there is 2 sections that need a little bit of tweaking, just because it came to me, probably while I was on vacation, of that doesn't make any sense. I need to change that. So I know there's these 2 little nitpicky things that need to change, but I probably also could use a full read through of the book again. And then I need to start sending it out for critique. Currently, right now, the word count stands at 34,853 words. That is a novella. It's not a novel. So I have stopped calling it a novel. It is a novella. It is a good novella. I think it is a very good book. And I'm just going to call it a book. I'm not calling it a novel. It doesn't fit the novel criteria. I tried. I hoped I would get it up to 50,000 words, but without doing some major changes, it's just not going to get there. And that is okay. Maybe I'm not meant to write big, long novels. I certainly can't picture this book being longer than it is. To me, it is great the way that it is. We'll see if anybody else feels that way. But I ain't stretching it out just to stretch it out. I'm not throwing in a bunch of extra stuff just to get it over the 75,000 words. I just think that's ridiculous. And I don't think I would like this book if it was that long. right now I feel it's great. It's tight, it's controlled, it's interesting, it's got some really interesting themes, and that's good enough for me right now. Who knows? Maybe in the future I'll write something that's 100,000 words. But right now, my almost 35,000 word novella is pretty darn good the way that it is, and so that's what I'm going with. So there's that. I have one short story that is about 75% done. I need to finish it. And then I have like two or three, I think it's three short stories that I haven't looked at in a while, and I need to look at those. So those are the projects that I have going around. Right now, I'm going to finish that short story. Hopefully, I'll finish it this week. I said that last week, though, but that didn't happen. But hopefully, I will finish it this week. And then I'm going to look at the other short stories. And then I'm going to work on the novel. I honestly don't think I'm going to touch this novel until April. So right now, for the month of March, it is finish this short story and revise and look over these other 3 short stories. That's the plan. That's what I want to do. And we'll see. We'll see how far I get. Right now, I feel good. I feel like I'm in a good headspace to get this done. But my past actions have shown me that sometimes I overestimate just how long it takes to really get something to a level that I'm happy with. And a month sounds like a long time, but sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's actually quite short. And the thing that I love, though, is that I try not to rush myself. I feel like if I put in the work the way that I want to, I get a better piece out of it. But it does mean that I don't rush things. And yeah, I don't think I'm ever going to be one of those writers that writes a book a year. But that's okay. I don't need to write a book a year. Right now, I just need to write a good book, a good story. But I certainly don't want to end up like George R. R. Martin writing, the same book for 20 years. I don't want that either. So something reasonable would be good. But right now, I'm hoping that, by June, let's say June 1st, I have completed all of these tasks. And like I said back in my goals for 2026, I would like to start querying. So hopefully this summer we'll see some movement. But that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at right now with my writing. And I think that it's a good place. I'd rather have more to do than nothing to do. You know what I mean? So that's how we're rolling. Vacation was good. I got on a plane, y'all, for the first time in a very long time. Like Obama was president the last time I was on a plane. And the thing is that when I was a little kid in the 80s, I flew planes all the time. All the time. My parents were good for just putting my brother on the plane and be like, go see your grandparents. And so planes will really freak me out. But I did travel this time, and nothing really changed. I'm not afraid of flying, although I did see a very cool thing. When I was flying back from the West Coast, y'all, I saw a SpaceX rocket take off while I was on the plane. That was so wild. I was like, what is that? It was this little bright thing going up into the upper atmosphere. And I was like, is that a rocket? Yes. Yes, it was. So I wish I had taken video, but I was so shocked that I was just staring at it. And then the people in the row ahead of me were like, is that a rocket? And I was like, I think it's a rocket. So yeah, I saw a rocket take off while I was in the flight, in the air. It wasn't close. Like, it was pretty far away, But still, that was a once in a lifetime thing. How many people can say they saw a rocket take off while they were 10,000 feet in the air. It's kind of wild. So anyway, that's going to go in a book somewhere someday. I know it. I just know it. But yeah, so I went on vacation, and shout out to the Santa Cruz bookshop, because I got this beautiful edition of This Is How You Lose the Time War. And check out those spray edges. You know, I wanted well, here's the back. I wanted some kind of really nice memorial, or not memorial, but memento. And we went into the bookstore, and there were some really great books, but I really wanted something special. You know, at this point, you can see some of my book collection here, and there's a bunch over there. At this point, I'm only buying books that are from my favorite authors or are special in some way. Like, it's signed, it has the spray edges, and this is a book I love. I read it last year and really enjoyed it. Really, really did. So it's a short book too. I think it is technically a novella. So they're out there, yeah. But I love it. I just thought it was so pretty, and I said, you know what, that can go on the shelf. That can go on the shelf. So, and the other thing I did, which I want to show, is I got this very beautiful journal from some New Age store that was there in Santa Cruz, and I have no idea what I'm going to do with it, but I'm going to figure out something. Maybe it'll be like, I don't know, my new meditation journal or something, or maybe I'll just save it for a special trip that I take. You know, who knows? You know, maybe my first book tour. Dun dun dun. That probably won't be for a while though, so we'll see. But it was really pretty, and I said, you know, that's a good little souvenir to take home too. So I had a good time. California is still like, it's such a great place to vacation, and thanks to my family for hosting me. I had a great time, guys, and now I'm back, and it is almost spring, so it's kind of warm here. Yesterday it was 68 degrees, I think, almost 70, so spring is coming, although it is supposed to do some sleeting or something tomorrow, so we're not out of the woods yet. My mom says that it's not officially spring until after my birthday, which is in the beginning of April, because it has been known to snow on my birthday. So once we get past my birthday, no more snow. It won't snow anymore. So we'll see. We'll see. So anyways, yeah, came back from vacation, rested, refreshed, ready to go. And then I wake up to the end of mass market paperback books, and HarperCollins is getting rid of their historical fiction section. And I have to say, I'm not surprised. I have a friend who writes in like women's fiction, women's historical fiction, and she was saying that the market has shifted, and there's just not that much attention. Although it's a shame, because she had an idea for 1980s England, like late Princess Diana era, that sounded really cool, but her publishers were a little non-excited about it. So we'll see. I still think she should probably write it and just see, but who knows? But yeah, the tide is turning with some interest in the publishing world in terms of what is hot right now. And do I think that like there won't be any historical fiction? No, I definitely don't think that. There will always be a place for some historical romances, most definitely. And I'm using historical romance and historical fiction intertwined, but really it's historical romance that is kind of, fading. But there are still people who really love it. There are still people who are getting deals. And so I hope if you write historical romance, you won't just say, oh, I shouldn't even bother because nobody's going to buy it. That's not true. And what I have noticed is that when a fad starts to go away and people tend to not write in it anymore, the people who stick around become those readers' favorite writers, because they stuck with the genre that these readers really love. There's going to be people who read historical romance no matter what. So you can go with that. 10 to 15 years ago, everybody was, crazy about vampires, and then vampires kind of fell off. Well, Lestat, the TV show, is alive and kicking, and there have been a couple of other vampire things. Sinners is the most, most recent that comes to mind, the movie. So vampires are not completely gone, but if you are going to write that, you should do something that hasn't really been seen before. That's why I thought my friend's Princess Diana book was really good, because she's not writing about Princess Diana. Let me be clear. She's writing about that era in the 80s England, where all the women just admired Princess Diana. And I thought that would have been really good, because I don't really know much about England in the 1980s, That was kind of the Margaret Thatcher era, if I remember correctly, but it was also the Princess Diana era, So, if you're writing something that is suddenly becoming uncool or not as popular, I think the best advice is to write the story that you want to tell, but make sure that you are telling a story that some people may not know about, something that offers a different spin on it, something that is unique. Just offering the same rehashed topics, people are going to be like, oh, we've already seen that before. You need to be sure that you are writing a story that is unique to you and what your interests are. And if you are writing about something that everybody knows, like World War II or World War I or something like that, be sure that you're showing characters that haven't been shown before, whether they're a minority of some sort, or maybe they're out in the countryside, or maybe they're city, but they're really older, or they're younger, or something like that. Something that makes them feel different than everything else you've already seen before. That's my advice, at least. You take what works for you. For me personally, I am not somebody who really genre hops that much. I'm not really interested in writing a thriller and then turning around and writing a romance. I really love the genre-bending speculative literature. That's really my thing, and I want to stick with that. If I venture anywhere, I might venture more into literary fiction, but my literary fiction tends to be flat if I don't offer some kind of unique plot line that happens. So I never really try to shovel it in, though, I have to say. My stories are never really like, oh, I want to write about a married couple, but the married couple, one person is dead, Like, I don't really do that. It's more of me saying, oh, there's this married couple and one of them's dead. Let's write about that. And that's just how stories come to me. So I don't really try and force a story to conform to what I write. It's more of me thinking up stories, and they just all tend to be the same when it comes to the style. And maybe because I've been doing it so long, maybe because I really also enjoy it, and maybe also because that's my writing voice. I've been working and crafting this voice for so long that it's second nature to me. I really don't know how to change my style. And that's okay. It's kind of like once you find clothes that flatter you, that's all the clothes you want to wear, even if they're in fashion or not. I still love a good bootcut jean. I don't know about y'all with these low-rise jeans and these skinny jeans. Y'all can miss me with that. A bootcut medium-rise jean in a dark wash is my jam. So I guess be yourself, be what feels right for you, and don't worry about whether or not like it's not popular anymore, so people aren't buying it. Will it be harder? Yeah, you're going to have to work harder at telling a story that people haven't heard before. But it doesn't mean it's impossible. It's sort of like, everybody I feel like is writing some kind of like romantasy book right now. And it's not that romantasy is, gonna guarantee you a sale, but you are competing with people who are writing it and have been writing it for a while. So you need to tell a romantasy story that somebody hasn't heard of before. And it's not rehashed, it's not derivative. And that's hard. It is. I'm not sitting here saying that it's easy, but it is hard. And the best way to go about doing that is to make sure that you're telling the best story you know how to tell, and that it is something that you feel like you've never read before. That's just my advice, So what other publishing news is there? I don't want to get into the AI stuff. That just depresses the heck out of me. It really does. And maybe I'll do another video later on this month talking about my thoughts on AI writing. I don't have anything good to say about it, to be honest. Yeah. And I don't want to get into it. This video is already like 27 minutes long, or 26 minutes long. So I'm not going to go all into it. Mass market paperbacks, let's just talk about that for a second. Because I was in the grocery store the other day, and the section with magazines I noticed is tiny. It is shrinking. It's just a normal suburban grocery store where I am shopping, and the section for magazines is small. The section for books is even smaller, and the majority of those books were these thick paperbacks that were thrillers, romance, and a few horror titles, and that's about it. By the way, horror is having a moment, okay? So if you're a horror writer, historical romance people, I'm sorry, it's not looking good for you. But if you write horror, horror is having a moment. So embrace the time that the pendulum has swung back to you all for horror writing, because yeah, it's out there. But anyways, the point is, mass market paperback shelving has gotten smaller, and I feel like a lot of people who are normally reading the mass market paperback books are now reading them on their e-readers. They're reading them on their phones. They are not shelling out the $8 for a thick paperback anymore. Nowadays, if you're buying a book, you're usually buying a trade paperback, or you're buying a smaller hardback or a regular size hardback, something like this. Now, this was $30. $30? Yeah, $30. I was happy to pay that because it's special, and I love this book. I buy a lot of my friends' books in hardback, but most of my books that I buy, if they're not my favorite writer, or maybe they're just someone that I picked up and I said, I always wanted to read that, is in a trade paperback. That's the larger paperback books that are like usually between like $10 and $15. And the hardbacks I'll pick up for the books I really love and I really like. But if it's an unknown writer that I've never heard of before, I am more comfortable paying $12 to $13 for their book if I have to buy it new than shelling out $30, $35 for a hardback. So I'm not surprised the mass market paperback is going the way of the dodo. Most people who are buying books are buying them online. Mass market paperbacks, they used to be the grocery store. They used to be all over the bookstore. Even bookstores, I don't really see them. And honestly, secondhand bookshops used to be the place where you could get mass market paperback. I remember being a kid and going into many a secondhand bookstore and just, they're like $2 for a mass market. Practically every Stephen King book I read, I bought secondhand from a bookstore, and they were like $2. So I would get, these thick paperback books. But nowadays, book buying and book trending is different. A lot of people are not buying their books in the grocery store. A lot of people are not buying their books. Maybe they're buying them at Costco. I don't know. I don't shop at Costco. But, they're not going to the bookstore to buy a mass market paperback book. And I think that is really what is hurting. Walmart and Target do carry a good amount of books, but I don't know. There's not a Walmart near me, so I go into Walmart maybe once every 5 years or so. But I did used to go into Target a lot, and Target carried a lot of trade paperback books and hardback books. I don't remember seeing a lot of mass market paperback either. So the places to sell these books are kind of going, and the buyers are not really buying them. I can't tell you the last time I bought a paperback book, a mass market paperback book from the grocery store. I think it's been 30 years, something like that. It's been a long, long time. Maybe when I was a teenager I used to, but not anymore. So that's kind of why they're gone. Will they come back? I don't know. I do think, though, that the prevalence of e-readers and people reading on their phones has made it much easier to get the book. If you're somebody who just doesn't care about book collecting, you don't care about, how pretty the book is, you're not worried about that. Getting it on an e-reader is much more convenient, even though now you don't technically own it. But I'm just saying, it's just not something that a lot of people are looking for. So it is very possible that probably in the next 5 years or so, you will not be able to find a lot of mass market paperback books. There might be a few still here and there, but I really think they're gone. And that will be the end of an era. It'll be the end of a cheap book. Not cheap as in cheap in story, but cheap as in price, and maybe the only place that you're allowed to get them, or you can get them mostly, is in secondhand bookstores where people read a book and then they give it back to the bookstore, like Friends of the Library. Yeah, it's a change. It's definitely a change. And as, social media becomes bigger, excuse me, I had a hiccup there. Social media becomes bigger, and like I said, e-readers become way more prevalent. We're not going to see the mass market paperbacks anymore, and book buyers will now be buying hardback or trade paperback. So I don't know. I don't really know how to feel about that. On the one hand, it is a change that I've known my whole life, and it's kind of weird that I now won't be seeing that as much. But on the other hand, I feel like if you're a writer, you want your book to get to as many places as possible, and hardbacks are expensive, and some people are, blink at that. Trade paperbacks are slightly cheaper, and that is good, but it's going to be like e-readers probably. Excuse me, I have to take a sip. Oh, do you like my cup? My aunt gave me that. So, that's the news. That's the things that are going on right now in publishing. There's some other stuff. There's some Twitter discourse that I saw about writers not reading. What's up with that? That might be my next video, because that worries me. That worries me more than AI. Like, how can you write a book and not read? I'm just saying. That's crazy talk. That's like saying, oh, I'm a chef, but I don't taste food. Like, what? I'm an actor, but I don't watch movies? What? Thank you so much for watching. Okay, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please hit the thumbs up and consider subscribing. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.